What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Sacred Men YouTube channel. This channel exists to equip and train and encourage Christian men to be strong, virtuous men in a weak and degenerate culture. I'm the host, Pastor Justin Dean, and it's a joy to be with you today. And hopefully you can notice right away that, number one, my face is pretty beat up from jujitsu, getting my face just destroyed with the gi, but I'm still here podcasting for you. And you can kind of see, maybe I got new glasses, and these glasses are supposed to be anti-glare. And so I can already tell they have less glare than they did before. So some of you told me that my glasses drove you crazy because of the glare. Last year I got glasses for the first time, didn't know anything about it, got just the regular ones. Now I've got anti-glare. Boom. Trying to improve the podcast. I've also got new streaming software and some new equipment behind the scenes. Hopefully things are going to be a little bit higher quality and sound a little better for you. And we're doing our best over here. Now, today's episode is a little bit different than we've done in the past. I don't really have a script, didn't really write anything, because I've been thinking a lot about, obviously we've been talking about virtue, the 4 cardinal virtues. We broke them down. We want to be virtuous men. We got to know what that means. But in order to become virtuous men, one of the things that we actually need, we need examples. We need virtuous men who come alongside of us and show us what that virtue looks like, right? Now, we can do that by going to the Bible and learning from things in the Bible. And that's good, and we should do that. But there's a power to story, right? There's a power to even movies that can show us a virtuous man, and we can want to emulate it. I remember the first time I watched Rocky as a kid. Well, actually, I don't remember the first time. I just watched it so many times. I remember watching it and like learning about determination, learning about working hard and outworking your opponent and having grit and being inspired by that. Like that, watching that inspired the way that I trained for, competition and stuff. And so I want us to be able to find good examples, and we can find good examples by reading, biographies and autobiographies, and we can find good examples in scripture. But there's one example that anybody that knows me knows that motivates me, that I'm inspired by, and it is the Lord of the Rings. Now, immediately, people who've just seen the movies or something, it's a myth or it's fiction, and how could it? There's something about reading the Lord of the Rings that makes me want to be a more virtuous man. There's all kinds of virtuous men in Lord of the Rings, and there's people that lack virtue in Lord of the Rings. There's wicked, evil people. C.S. Lewis once commented about Lord of the Rings. He said he loved the novel because the people's insides were displayed on their outside. So the elves, they're virtuous and kind of, I wouldn't say more morally pure. And so they're brilliant on the outside, and orcs are demonic on the inside. And so their insides look like their outsides. Their outsides look like their insides. So most of the time it's pretty easy to spot a good guy and a bad guy. So what I want to do today is I want to talk a little bit about Lord of the Rings. I just finished The Return of the King. I mentioned this in a sermon a few weeks back. Sat down. It was cold around here, so I sat down and I just busted out the last half of The Return of the King. And I was just deeply moved and inspired in a way that I haven't been before. I've probably read The Lord of the Rings 10 times. I've read it more than any other fiction book. I don't like fiction books. Most of the time, the way my brain works, I just want to finish a book. I want to get it. I want to understand what it's about. And then it is what it is. I kind of eat fiction books a little bit like candy. They don't really do much for me. But The Lord of the Rings is different. It's something I come back to over and over, and I kind of never stop reading it. I finished Return of the King, and I walked upstairs and I grabbed Fellowship of the Ring, and I came back downstairs and I kept reading. And there's something I've learned. The Lord of the Rings is a long book. It's a very long book. It's going to take you weeks, months, maybe a year, uh, depending on your reading speed and how often you read it to get through it. And the first time you read through it, you're going to be like, what is this? It's going to be like, man, he's really descriptive about scenes and flowers and all kinds of things. And if you're like me, you're going to be like, get to the point, get to the fights, get to the battle scenes, get to the climax, get to these things. And you're just wanting to read it like you would watch a movie and just kind of gobble it up and then walk away. But this isn't that type of book. It's a type of book that the more time you spend in it, the more it changes you as a person. The darkness gets darker, the brightness gets brighter, the beauty gets more glorious, the virtue starts standing out at you. You start like really caring about the characters and understanding them more and more. You start seeing yourself in some of the good guys, some of the bad guys. You start picking up things that you had never noticed before. And I started thinking, like, developing virtue, becoming a virtuous man. I really think that it's like reading through the Lord of the Rings. It's a slow, kind of arduous process. And then you get through the book. And then if you go back again and read it again, it's like the process of developing virtue, man. Like I think there's some virtues that you can develop just by reading it, because you're becoming attuned to light and dark, goodness and evil. You're becoming attuned to the deceit of the enemy. You're becoming attuned to how compelling wickedness and darkness and the evil use of power can be. And you also start to crave goodness, truth, and beauty. You start to see how they're actually more compelling. And though they're not easily accessible, you don't just give yourself over to goodness, truth, and beauty. You can give yourself over to wickedness, but you actually have to pursue virtue. You have to grind and go through the battles and go through the hardship and go through the difficulty and strive with all your might and face insurmountable odds and insurmountable, enemies, and think that you're not going to win. And if God doesn't show up, then you will lose. And over and over and over in the book, God shows up. Now, he doesn't show up as God. He shows up as the author's prerogative. He shows up as, it could be chance or just in the nick of time. But you get this sense that God, the Tolkien here, the author, is in control of the whole story the whole time. And each character thinks that it's going to be their last moment. And sometimes it is, but the main characters throughout, they're being guided by providence. And this process is meant to create in them, make them certain type of men. And so I'm going to commend this book to you if you haven't read it. And the first time through, it'll probably be okay. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's one of the best stories ever written. But the gold is found in rereading it and rereading it. And I think there's something about its virtue, like the virtue of this book, that seeps into the reader who keeps reading and keeps reading. Now, let me give a quick kind of overview that I think most people miss. I missed it. Now, I was late to the game in reading the book. I was late to the game in reading, period. I don't think I read a book until I graduated high school, when I became a Christian. I don't think I ever read a book before that. So I watched at least the first movie. Before I read the book. I might have waited. I might have watched all three movies before I read the book. I can't really remember off the top of my head. But I think I might have watched all three movies, because I remember the first time I read through it, I got really confused by the ending, because the ending in the book is a lot different than the ending in the movie. So let me lay this out for you really quickly. The whole story begins in this place called the Shire. And begins with these creatures called hobbits, small, pretty insignificant characters, but they're happy. They're kind of, most of them are pretty joyful. They're simple. They love good food. They love good drink. They love their family. They're kind of protected in this Garden of Eden type of space. And they don't really know any battles. They don't really know any enemies. They don't fight. They don't go on any, extraordinary journeys. They just kind of exist in this little garden. And what they don't know is the reason that they can enjoy that peace and quiet of the Shire is that there are hard men out in the surrounding areas protecting them. There's people watching over them and keeping kind of evil things and darkness and evil men at bay. And so they're enjoying this kind of protected state in the Shire. And because they're so protected, they actually lack many virtues. They lack fortitude for one, right? They lacked fortitude for one. And they don't have to really do much with justice either, because there's not much wickedness going on around them. And, they're pretty much happy and they get along relatively well. And so they're actually lacking virtue. And there's this growing darkness coming out of Mordor and coming out of other places. There's this growing darkness around them. And this ring of power, right? This ring of power that is controlled by the Dark Lord comes to Frodo, the Hobbit. And to make a long story short, he's got to take this ring of power and he's got to do this long, arduous, difficult journey all the way back to Mordor to destroy it. And hobbits don't do this kind of thing. And yet Providence has brought him this ring and he's got to do it. And of course he's got this wise counselor, Gandalf the Grey, who's going to try to help him on his way. But of course Gandalf is busy with wizard things and, trying to figure out everything that's going on behind the scenes. And he's got all of these different pieces that he's got to put together. So Gandalf leaves him alone for a while. And he's got to make his way back. And then eventually he gets this fellowship around him. There's a couple men, there's a dwarf, there's an elf, of course, Gandalf, and he's got a few of his buddies, 3 other hobbits with him. And it's the fellowship. They call themselves the Fellowship of the Ring. And this is this idea that if you're going to be a virtuous man, and if you're going to do an impossible task, you can't do it alone. You're going to need help from other brothers, even people that elves and dwarves don't get along. And so you've got this kind of unity in diversity going along with that. This task is so big, it's going to take kind of all the tribes of men in one sense, all the parties on Middle Earth to unite to defeat this great evil. And, the journey to Mount Doom is so long and it's so slow that it tests your patience. There's plenty of action in there, but the Lord of the Rings is not like this action-packed adventure story. There's great battles and all kind of stuff, but there's long pieces of dialogue. It really kind of drags out this journey. And the whole point is, we're called to something like this that's going to take our life. It's going to take everything we've got to accomplish. And it's not always done in a week or in a few days. It's not just something you can sit down and watch in 2.5 hours and boom, you're there. But Frodo, and I'm gonna just track the hobbits here. There's so many things I could talk about, but I'm gonna track the hobbits. These hobbits go from kind of clueless, jovial. They kind of lack wisdom. They definitely don't have fortitude, and not really dealers in justice. Okay. And then they have to go through this long, arduous journey that radically changes them. All 4 of them that go on this journey are radically changed. They're changed through their friendship with one another. This book is a phenomenal book about friendship, about loyalty to one another. You read it and you want to be a better friend. You want to be like Samwise and Pippin and Merry. Um, it's about, like I said, loyalty. It's about virtue. It's about facing impossible tasks, but doing the right thing anyway. And so they have to face demonic creatures, the Nazgul, and Frodo right away gets stabbed with a Nazgul blade. And it's such a poignant picture. He gets wounded by this invisible blade that damages his body. And yet, through kind of elven magic, they heal him, but they can't heal his soul. There's this mark. He's a changed man after that. He's a changed hobbit after that. He's got an ache that is never going to leave him. And this is what's interesting about the Lord of the Rings compared to the Hobbit. The Hobbit, Bilbo goes on this great adventure, all kinds of, dragons and all kind of cool stuff. And then he comes back and he's pretty much the same man. And not only is the same man, but he's got this ring, and basically it just brings blessing into his life for the most part. He gets a longer life. And so it's like a there and back again story, but Bilbo isn't like radically changed in who he is. But in Lord of the Rings, it's completely different. All the people that go on this quest come back radically changed, but Frodo most of all. And so you've got these, and then they leave from there, and the fellowship ends up kind of starting to fall apart. They lose Gandalf in his fight with the Balrog. And of course, Frodo and Sam from that moment on. So in the first book that happens, and Frodo and Sam think that Gandalf's dead. And then there's this other thing going on that eventually they get reunited. He gets reunited with Merry and Pippin and Gimli and Aragorn and Legolas, and they realize he's back alive, and they're fighting all these battles. But if you track Frodo and Sam, they're pretty much alone. They get some help from Faramir and stuff, but they've got this just impossible journey, step after step after step, encountering darkness the whole way, hunger, thirst. Frodo's still dealing with this wound. The weight of the ring is getting heavier and heavier and heavier. It's taken all of his strength. He almost dies several times. Sam has to learn how to fight. Frodo has to learn how to fight a little bit. Sam has to carry the ring for a little while. And then Sam eventually has to carry Frodo. Frodo can't even make it up to Mount Doom. I'm fast forwarding a long ways. And they get to the end of the goal, and Frodo is overcome by the ring, and he can't destroy it. And then the mercy that they showed to Gollum, that mercy that they showed by not destroying Gollum comes back and bites Frodo's finger off and takes the ring, and then dances around and falls into the Mount Doom, and the ring is destroyed. Now, this is where most movies would end, and The Lord of the Rings kind of did end there in the movie. But when you're reading the book, there's still 130 pages or so left. And I remember the first time I read the book being so struck by this. I was like, whoa, they just destroyed the ring. This should be happily ever after. But this was more, it's more than just, we have to do this thing novel. We have to destroy the ring. That is what the book's about. But again, the book is actually more about these characters going from characters that lack certain virtues to virtuous, strong and virtuous characters. And so what happens there when they destroy the ring, of course, it's revealed, Gandalf flies in on the eagles, rescues them. They find out Gandalf's alive. This is amazing reunion. And then you begin this trek back to the Shire. And Aragorn is crowned king, and it's a glorious ceremony. And, this is one of the reasons why he destroyed the ring. Like, the rule of men has come. Gandalf realizes that his time, his age is up. The age of wizards is over. Now it's the time of the age of king. So they kind of leave the king where he's at, and the fellowship kind of begins to break apart. Legolas and Gimli go do their thing, and you get them, and they go back. They find Saruman in his tower, and he runs off, and there's this sense that we've won the battle. The king is enthroned, and yet there's still work to do. There's still something that has to be done. And what that something is, you don't find out until like the second to last chapter. And it's called The Scourging of the Shire. And it's become one of my favorite chapters in the whole book. And what it is these happy-go-lucky hobbits have come back. The king is on his throne. Gandalf has left them. Legolas, Gimli has left them. Basically, all the tough guys, all the hard men have left them. All the battle-tested men have left them. And now it's just 4 hobbits that have to go back to the Shire. And what happened, they didn't know this happened, but what happened is Saruman and Wormtongue fled the tower, and they went back to the Shire. And Saruman's power has been taken from him by Gandalf, and because the ring is destroyed. And so now all he has is the power of his tongue, right? He's got the power of a normal man, the power of his tongue. And what he does is he goes back, and through fear and manipulation and, threats, he takes over the Shire. Again, the Shire weren't fighting folks. They didn't have weapons. They weren't strong. They weren't just men. They didn't have fortitude. So he conquers the Shire pretty easily. And this is what it looks like. The Shire is what it looks like when you have a culture full of soft men. You have a culture full of men who lack the hard virtues of justice and fortitude. And so he basically takes over. He takes over all the means of production. He basically turns it into a socialistic kind of communistic place where he's in control of all the harvests. He's in control of all the wine. He's in control of all the pipe weed. And he gives out a little here and there, but he's basically using it for his own use and doing what he wants with it. And the hobbits get back to their hometown. The hobbits get back to the Shire, and there's gates set up where there were never gates before. But this was what's so beautiful about this chapter. The hobbits are not the same as when they left the battle. They've been through things, right? They've been through loss. They've been through pain. They've had wins. They've had losses. And it's made them into hard men now, right? Or hard hobbits. And so these guys start talking smack over the fence, and they're just like, they're different men. They're hollering over there, you better open that gate before I come over there and smack you and, knock you out or whatever. And they're carrying swords now. They know how to use these swords now. They're in armor now. And that's what they do. They hop over the gate and they take over, and they're like, oh, the big man's going to find out. Sharky. And they're like, good, take me to him. And then they go back, and the Shire has been, it's not totally destroyed, but it has fallen from its former glory. Vegetation has been cut down, trees have been cut down, different style of architecture has been built up. It's an uglier place than when they left it. And, it's kind of a sad story. It's kind of like going to your hometown and seeing it run over with low-income housing and crime in the streets and graffiti and all this kind of stuff. It's that kind of feeling. And the best part about this chapter is that these men now, these hobbits, they know what to do, right? Before, they would have went along with all the other hobbits. They wouldn't have resisted. They wouldn't have spoken up. They wouldn't have, took up weapons and fought. They would have just gone along with it in fear, just like everybody else. But now they've seen things. Now they've pushed back the darkness. They fought demons and they've won. They've seen how the light can penetrate the darkness and the light cannot be overcome. And so now they've got experience, right? They've got real virtue, and they go back in and they cleanse the Shire. They, take out the bad guys. They have, a bunch of guys, they rally the troops. They say, we're fighting. And you see these hobbits who, like I said, they were, happy-go-lucky type of people. Finally, they have a leader. Finally, they have 4 hobbits who come in and say, we're not taking this crap anymore. We're standing up to this injustice. We're standing up to this wickedness. We're standing up to this evil. And we're standing up to this guy that's got no power, but he acts like he does because he's good at talking. And ultimately what they do is they kick all their butts. But they do it because they have virtue, because they have fortitude now. They've been changed through this great battle and this great quest that they've been through. And then you see evil basically commit suicide. So you've got Saruman and Wormtongue, and Saruman's always kind of treated Wormtongue like crap. And he starts blaming Wormtongue for all kind of stuff that Saruman told him to do. And Wormtongue freaks out, cuts Saruman's throat, takes off running, and then they shoot him with arrows and kill him. And the whole point, from my perspective, is that the virtues aren't soft, right? The virtues aren't all empathetic and kindness, that there are virtues that are hard, like fortitude and justice. And if like Edmund Burke said, all it takes for evil to win is for good men to do nothing. And these were good men now, and they had to come back and they had to do something. And what did they have to do? They had to drive out the darkness. They had to drive out the evil amongst them. They had to regain control of the production, put it back into the hands of the people. They had to beautify the Shire again. They had to drive the wickedness from it. And in order to do that, they needed to fight, right? They needed to fight. They like, if everybody's Mr. Nice Guy, well, the one mean, strong man is going to come in there and take over, right? And so they had to become virtuous men that could drive out these people and give them a home again. And that's basically what they do. And then we see with Frodo, Frodo is so changed from his battle. And you could even say his battle with sin, right? If you see the Ring of Power as kind of a analogy to sin, he's so changed by it. He's so wounded by it. He doesn't even get to enjoy the Shire. Sam and Merry and Pippin do, but he's got to go off. He's got to sail west with Gandalf because he basically can't live in that place anymore. He's been so changed by it. So it's a beautiful picture, man. It's a beautiful book. You read it. I want to be more like Aragorn. I want to be more like Faramir. I want to be more like, almost all of the virtuous people in the book. I want to be a better friend. I want to be, but honestly, if you're reading it and you're more of a soft man, right? You have the soft virtues. When you read and you're looking at the hobbits and you're kind of laughing at them and they just want a good, cup of ale and they just want to eat and they just want to have fun. And you see their arc, their character development, right? That should be our character development as well. We should be men like that. It's good. I mean, the thing is, when they get back and they're hard men, right? And they're tough and they're strong and they've got fortitude and they know how to execute justice. They still know how to have a good time. They're still jovial. They still laugh. They still love a good meal and a good drink and some good pipeweed. And that's the kind of men that we want to be, right? We don't want to get hard and cold and kind of burned out and despondent and bitter. We don't want to be like that. We want to be tough and tender. We want to be strong and joyful. And we want to fight the battles that we have to fight so that our children don't have to fight them, right? And so the battles that the Lord's bringing us to right now, we want to face those head on. We want to speak the truth in love. We want to be virtuous men. And we're never going to be virtuous if we keep putting off those battles. If we keep making excuses why, we can't do the hard thing today. We can't put our sin to death today. We can't support our brothers. We can't be a good friend. We can't be a good husband. We can't be a good father. We can't be a good workman. We keep putting off these battles, these quests that the Lord puts in front of us. we're never going to change. We're never going to grow into virtuous men. And so what I would commend to you is start reading Lord of the Rings. Start reading it. I pray that you would get hooked by it. I pray that it would cast a spell on you and you would want to protect the Shire. That's where I'm at. I want to build the Shire here in the Quad Cities. I want to protect the Shire. I want to make our city a more beautiful, a more truthful, and graceful place to live, right? I want it to, beauty, goodness, truth, and beauty, right? That's what we want in our city. We want to build the Shire, right? And in order to build a Shire, we're going to have to drive out some wickedness. We're going to have to drive out some evil, even the evil within us. We're going to have to drive out the weakness, the softness in us. And we're going to have to become hard men that can do hard things for the glory of God and for the good of the Shire. That's what we want to do. So, whether it's just speaking the truth to liberal crazies in our city, whether it's supporting justice in our streets, whether it's teaching our kids the Bible, whatever it is, we want to be virtuous men that can do that. And I think reading Lord of the Rings is a great step in that direction. And the more you read it and the longer you read it, I'm telling you, man, the more you'll be changed by it. And the more you'll be able to see the world through virtue and vice, right? You'll be able to see the world that way and be shaped by it. And you'll be able to recognize, you'll have the discernment to see the difference between virtue and vice. And you'll be able to pursue virtue with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And so that's what I'm hoping for you. So guys, that's what I got for you today. If you've got any questions or comments, or if you just want to put down below your favorite part of the Lord of the Rings, man, or you got questions on the Lord of the Rings, put them down. I'm not a Lord of the Rings scholar. I've just read it several times and love it. I'm always learning more about it. But again, appreciate it if you liked, if you subscribed, and if you shared this podcast with a friend. And guys, next week, my plan is to talk about discernment. So I've been thinking about this, written some stuff on it, and I want to talk about the necessity of discernment in the life of a virtuous man. So that's coming next week. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. God bless, and I'll talk to you soon.